So,
Yes, now it's working.
thank you.
Mhm.
On the Bodhicharyavatara that we'll be going on to next, after this delightful verse from the Hitopadesha that I feel inclined to do with you. We are, as you know, alternating between, yes, welcome Marco. We are alternating between the Bhagavad Gita and the Bodhicharyavatara. Now, people like us, strong, steadfast, and diligent, we like. Did I say something funny, Barry? um, there can come a point where you can say, hang on, am I really getting a huge amount out of this? So I do not think, I would not regard it as heretical if people started saying, well, hang on, this is getting really rather convoluted and abstruse. Might it be possible to do something else instead? We are at a part of the Bodhicharyavatara which is brilliant, profound, and wonderful, though it undoubtedly is, in what it's telling us at this juncture. Is it the most ideal text to be studying? I'm happy to place myself in your hands about this. So what I'm proposing to do then, having thrown it open that nobody will be accused of heresy, if they say, hang on, is this what we really want to go on doing? And I will be even secretly pleased if there's a chorus of protest against it. But actually, now I've disclosed it, it won't be secretly anymore because I've just said so openly. But
Can I say, Jim, I've never actually heard of the Bodhicharya before starting these sessions.
mhm.
Could you say a little bit about it? But the other thing, convoluted and complex is fun. That's good. I don't think we should be too bothered about that. It's really interesting to see you go into these things in such great detail. I mean, that's one of the things I find so fascinating about these sessions, to be quite honest, rather than just the content of the text.
Well,
Well,
I mean, in a sense, Barry, you're a man after my own heart, like that. I like to go into complex and convoluted things.
were
Um,
you going to suggest something simpler, James?
um, well, I mean, I could. That was part of the reason for suggesting that, because as you know, for a long time, we'd been alternating between the Bodhicharyavatara and going through the Sanskrit grammar, the Thomas Eginus Sanskrit grammar. And then we switched to alternating between the Bodhicharyavatara and the Bhagavad Gita. Now, the reason I chose the Bhagavad Gita, although it's not a Buddhist text. I mean, it's very firmly within what you could call the Hindu tradition. I chose the Bhagavad Gita because it is just a text of extraordinary beauty, and the language of it is actually relatively simple Sanskrit. Those of you who studied Latin in your youth might remember we all did De Bello Gallico, you see, Julius Caesar De Bello Gallico, because that was regarded, okay, you're a little bit beyond the grammar book there, and it's a genuine Latin text. I mean, written by a native Latin speaker in his own language. And it was a very popular text because Julius Caesar, not being a poet or anything, he was just a soldier, a practical man, a governor, and he wrote in very simple, direct Latin, and so it was regarded as a suitable kind of Latin, perfect Latin, but suitable for people who are not at a very, very advanced stage. You can go on to Virgil later, but Caesar de Bello Gallico is a good starting point. Now, it had often occurred to me that the Bhagavad Gita is the De Bello Gallico of Sanskrit. It's a text of enormous significance, of very great spiritual profundity and beauty, but the language is pretty simple. I mean, there's nothing, the poet, the person who wrote it did not go out of his way to make it tricky, complex, difficult, using little poetic tricks like many of the Sanskrit writers did. It's really plain, simple stuff. I mean, are you in agreement with me there, Marco? You're very, very, very familiar with these things. Thank you. Did you do De Bello Gallico when you were little?
Yes, I did. In a very bad way also, with not nice mark grades.
With not a nice
results. We had bad marks.
Okay, right. Oh, poor fellow. Well, I did when I did it at school. It's a pity I wasn't more interested, but some of our teachers were very boring, and when I was doing it with Jesuits, that was awful. Later on with Benedictines, that was much better. I mean, as you know, the Jesuits are called the soldiers of the church. The Benedictines are called the gentlemen of the church. So it makes a huge difference what kind of teacher you have. Anyway, so that's why we're doing the Bhagavad Gita, and so this really gets me back to what Kath was saying about something simpler. So the Bhagavad Gita is about as well, pretty much almost as simple as you can get, while being a genuine Sanskrit text. I mean, not something written by a textbook writer. This is genuine Sanskrit text. There are other texts, Buddhist texts that are, for example, there's the Buddha Charita, Saundarananda. There are some very lovely, these are Buddhist texts. What we could do is try some of that. What we might do then, just experimentally, is just to introduce you to, say, a few verses of the Saundarananda. Some of which, I mean, it's reasonably simple Sanskrit. And again, there's a lot of profundity in it, and it's lovely poetry in its own right. And so Saundarananda is actually very beautiful as a poetic work. So what we could do then is to have a look at the Saundarananda. Literally, beauty joy, who is joyful because of his beauty. It's the story of a man who was married and very, very deeply in love with his wife and vice versa, but who by a series of coincidences somehow walked into the monastic life, and the trials and the torments of being deprived of the company of his beautiful and loving wife, and how his conversion gradually to see that whatever joys he had found with his loving and beautiful wife were as nothing in comparison with the joy of the spiritual life.
Could I just say, if asked to choose, as we're not having so much time with you now, I'd prefer to be with a Buddhist text, and I'd be very happy to continue with the Bodhicharya. But I don't, that would be my choice, I think.
Okay, right. So we've got two now in favor of continuing with the Bodhicharyavatara. I won't ask for a decision now if you want to think about it. So we'll leave it as it is for the moment, but always remember it is an open question. We're free to do as we want. So what I'm proposing to do now, and I'm going to throw in bits of light relief anyway. We're going to do this rather lovely verse. When we've just
James, sorry, what you've just said though about that monk or chap who took up the monastic life reminded me of the fact that, unfortunately, one of my younger brothers, his wife decided to have an affair with a defrocked monk.
Sorry, your younger brother's wife had an affair with a defrocked monk.
Yes, it just put me. Sorry.
Goodness me. That's not how the story of Soundarananda goes, but a lot of huge and pent-up energies can arise in certain people in certain circumstances. What kind of a monk had he been? I mean, what denomination, what order? Had he been a Roman Catholic monk?
I've no idea. I tried to stay clear of the whole chaotic situation, James. But obviously my younger brother wasn't best pleased by.
I can well imagine that. But it would have been interesting, since I've had a fair amount to do with Roman. Well, I was brought up as a Roman Catholic. I was one until the age of 20. It would have been interesting to know what variety of monk it was.
Yes, but. Sounds like a case of art imitating life, though, doesn't it?
It does rather. It does rather. Though Sundarananda was never guilty of any infidelity or adultery. Indeed, everything with his wife was perfectly correct and lawful and above board. But this is a story of his spiritual transformation towards a higher kind of joy. The story of your younger brother suggests that the spiritual journey of the monk did rather kind of turn downwards in the wrong direction, it seems. Goodness me. Okay, so back to we'll just finish up with the Bodhicharya Avatara. Barry, yes, Bodhicharya Avatara. I won't attempt to construct a lecture in my mind now. It was written by what you might broadly speaking call a Mahayana monk in the Indian tradition around 500 AD or something. And it was just a long poem about the spiritual life. I'm just composed in Sanskrit verse. Very high quality of Sanskrit, by the way.
Thank you.
What I could do, I've done an entire analytical edition of it. So for those of you, I can just send out to you the entire analytical edition that I've done of it, for you all to see.
I'd appreciate that.
That's chapters 1 right through to 10. What I did there, chapter 7 I've done in the very detailed level of analysis that you've seen, and also chapter 6 up to where we are now, and a little bit further in the detailed level of analysis. The other chapters, to a certain extent, not analysed in the same detail, but presented in a way that makes the language easy for the English-speaking learner, or the learner approaching through the medium of English. So I would be able to send that to you.
But the one that you mentioned, the chap who left his wife to go into a monastery, that sounds very interesting. I'd be interested in that personally.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lovely story in it where this man, because he's in the monastic life, and the other monks can see how terribly sad he is about being separated from his wife. And there comes a point in the story when he's out with the other monks in the forest, and they come upon an ancient lady monkey. And she is very old, rather deformed, discolored, a terrible looking specimen of an elderly female monkey. And the monks say to him, look at that monkey. How does that ugly old monkey compare in beauty with your wife? Ah, he says, what comparison could there be? And he goes on about the beauty of his wife and this awful old monkey. What a silly question. And then they say, right. Then they show him, by their psychic powers, a vision of this, heavenly angelic Apsara female. And say, right. And he's absolutely stunned. He didn't know anything could be quite as lovely as that. And the monks say to him, right, how now does your wife compare with this heavenly divine form? Oh, he said, well, the comparison is from the monkey to my wife, and now up from my wife to this beautiful creature. Then he starts really desiring this even more beautiful creature. And that's where the punchline comes in. I said, right. Now the fruits of the spiritual life well lived, again, more beautiful by an infinite amount, even than this lovely divine form. So there he now sees everything in perspective, from the monkey, his wife, the heavenly divine form, and the fruits of the spiritual life. So basically, the poem, it's a long poem about this story, but we could bring in some of the few punchy verses, these crunch moments in it.
I appreciate that if you'd include that personally.
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah, it certainly sounds intriguing, James.
Yeah. Okay. I'll get working on this, and until I've done that, we'll continue as we are. But hopefully, I'll be able to get a bit of that done. So I'm just going to call up now the. Oops, just sharing screen. No. I've been having a bit of a problem with my share screen function. Can you now see mostly the screen and just some of us? Can you see? Well, what can you see apart from the shared screen?
I see everybody.
You can see the shared document plus 6 faces.
Yeah.
Oh, that's all right then. So maybe I've managed to reset it properly.
I can only see you and the shared screen, James.
That's funny. Barry, what can you see then?
Well,
I can see the shared
setting.
screen and the line of everybody at the top.
Oh.
It depends on the settings on your device as to what view you have.
Okay, fine.
Yeah, James, sorry, I've changed to view my gallery.
Okay, right.
I can see everybody on plus.
Okay, fine. So what I can see, because I have a bank of 3 screens, there's my middle screen right in front of me. I can see all of you, and I've got a separate screen then when I have which is the shared screen. So last time round we were looking at this verse. Ashotyanan vashotjastvam prajnavadanscha bhashase gatasun agatasunschcha nanushochanti panditaha. And I think, did everyone have a chance to recite that?
I think so.
I think we did. There were some entertaining questions, etymological points that came up. Who was it who was asking? Was it you, Barry, asking about whether we've got this root bha and the Greek pe, and the Latin fa? Was it you who was asking whether it was cognate with phone or phonos, telephony, phonos meaning sound?
I remember that, but it wasn't me. It was someone else. I can't remember who it was.
I can't. Anyway, the answer is yes, it is. I checked it, and indeed it is. So the
I think it was Marco who was asking.
so Paola, yes, thank you. Yes,
I'm sure Marco is here, so he can speak for himself.
so yeah, the answer is yes, it does. Ifoni, telefono, telephone. It is from that same root of fa, speaking. And another interesting one was who was asking about the etymology of vada? Vada meaning speech and words.
I'm afraid it was always me.
Well, I'm very glad you did, Marco, because we have discovered that it is. So we've got. Let me just call up iPad one moment. Oops, iPad. Dum. Something quite interesting emerged because we're looking at this word vada from the root vad, and it is connected. Oops. With the Greek word that's come into English as or in modern Greek, I think of it. It's one that's come into modern English as an ode, in the sense ode word for a poem, as ode to a nightingale, for example, which is from the root, that same root, vad. So nothing to do with word. However, I did then look up, try and trace back our English word word. And very interestingly, in Sanskrit, it's the one that turns up as vrata. Now, vrata is a word meaning like a vow or an oath. You swear a holy vow. It could be like the monastic vows of chastity. It might be the oath that the king swears upon being anointed. And that is the word vrata. And that same word vrata turns up in modern English as word. And just also in English, the word can just mean words coming out of your mouth, but also in the more formal sense, I give you my word of honor. See? So word still has, depending on the context, still has that meaning of one's solemn promise. Curiously enough, in its journey into Latin, the D became a B. And that is why in Latin, we have verbum. In principio erat verbum. Or as you say nowadays, in principio erat verbum. So that it has the same idea, rather kind of a solemn, heavy sense, not just words of running speech, but in the beginning was the word. In beginning of the Gospel of John, in logos, the logos and the verbum. So there we are. So vada was nothing to do with word, but the search for it now led me to connect it with vrata. So that's why I say, even though the initial idea you have might not be correct, please bring them up anyway, because they often lead us to, we're looking for one thing and you discover another beautiful thing.
Okay, what about the word verity?
Verity, veritas, verum.
Is that from the same?
I don't actually know, but that is something that I will check before next time round. So I'll just make a note to check this.
Thank you. Very interesting.
Yeah, it's so the deeper you go into this, the more you see that we aren't really studying a remote language. You go underneath the surface, and still we're all speaking something that very closely related. And it becomes more as you go on. We can feel that we're breathing this common history of our languages. Whether we are speakers here, we have speakers of French, Italian, Greek, and English. We think of these remote and odd languages,
but Welsh,
and a bit of Welsh, even Welsh, you see. That's another good old Indo-European language.
but what about the word veritably?
Veritably. I'm going to have to check this one out, Barry. I'm afraid I don't have the answer in my head. But verum. I'll check it anyway. I can't immediately, and there are various Sanskrit roots that look like, or Vedic roots that look a bit like it, but I don't relate them to truth. I will check anyway. I'll check and come back. So back to our Bhagavad Gita. So I'll just look at any questions or comments that you may have. And then we can go on to our Udyamena hi karyani siddhyanti namanurathai, which is the new one I'm going to give you that I mentioned in my last email. So any comments or queries about this, and we can move on. So, I wanted to look at this verse. It's from the Hitopadesha. Oh, by the way, coming back to Kath's question about really, really simple but genuine Sanskrit, the Hitopadesha is such a word. It's from the Hita, meaning beneficial, good, and Upadesha, meaning advice, instruction, counsel. So the friendly advice that's sometimes translated out of the wise counsel. Hita Upadesha, by Santi becoming Hitopadesha. It's it's like stories within stories. It's a little bit like an ancient tradition of Aesop's fables. And in fact, many of Aesop's fables actually originated in India and then came via Persia to Greece. So we have this common substratum of these fables, many of which involve animals. And it's written in generally beautifully simple Sanskrit. It's not intended to be a religious text at all. Some of the stories in it are extremely naughty, but some of it borders, verges on adult entertainment, that they call it. But in Sanskrit, you see. The Indians didn't seem to be shy about that kind of thing. They just weren't shy at all. And it has, it's partly in verse, partly in prose. You've got the story going on mostly in prose, and then lots of little moral points, difficulties arise, and these bits of verses seem to be gathered from here and there among the whole of Indian folklore and assembled there. The verse I was going to look at today with you it runs. Well, let's try and do it mostly orally for a start, and then I will relieve you by having a little bit of writing. It goes Udyamena hi hi. Siddhyanti karyani namanurthaihi. Nahi suptasya singhasya pravishanti mukhe mrigaha. Now this line, nahi, for not, nahi suptasya singhasya, for not, suptasya singhasya, of a sleeping lion, pravishanti mukhe mrigah. So putting it in an English order, mrigah, nahi mrigah, the deer, na pravishanti, do not enter, mukhe, mukhe, in the mouth, suptasya singhasya, of a sleeping lion. The first line reads like, it is by effort that you will achieve what you need to do. For the deer do not walk into the mouth of the sleeping lion. The idea is that, however strong and powerful you are, like the lion, you've got to make some effort. If the lion is lying there asleep, however powerful he is, the deer just won't oblige him by walking into his mouth. This line, by the way, a little personal note, Nehi suptasya singhasya pravishanti mukhe mriga, has an iconic significance in my life because 60 years ago, close to the beginning of my Sanskrit studies, it was the very first line, or in this case, half line of Sanskrit poetry that I actually got without any assistance, without a translation or, oh, wow, it's working, it's working. I've understood a line of poetry without a translation, without assistance. And that moment of joy, I remember now from 60 years ago when I got it.
Were you self-taught in Sanskrit, or did you take some classes before adventuring into Hitopadesha?
Well, actually, this was when I was an undergraduate, and I was actually, my main subjects as an undergraduate were Arabic and Persian. But it was while I was there, in fact, it was in my second year as an undergraduate, I then was introduced to Buddhism. And since I was, I'd always been interested in language and found languages easy. So I thought, okay, well, let me just study Sanskrit and Pali, because I found them easy and because of the interest in Buddhism. But back in those days, I don't know if they still have the rule, but at Cambridge, if you were a matriculated undergraduate, if you were registered as an undergraduate of the university, you were automatically permitted to attend any lecture at all. You didn't, you weren't restricted to your own subject. It's the traditional ancient way that universities were run in Europe. I mean, this wonderful system had been established in Italy, Bologna. Bologna la dotta, they call it. Bologna the learned, because the most ancient university in Europe. It was the Italians who, and then Oxford and Cambridge, then were following along the model. And at about the same time, we have the University of Al-Azhar from Madeleine's esteemed native land, the University of Al-Azhar in Cairo.
Yeah. Yes, of course.
Yes. So it was all around that. And back in those days, the teachers were teaching, and any student could attend any teacher. So a little bit of rivalry among the teachers, I think, to see who could draw the greatest number of students. Anyway, back to where we were. So I was able to attend any lecture, and there were a series of lectures in Sanskrit. And you think of university lectures as being a lecture in a big hall full of students, but the number of Sanskrit students was so small that you go to a lecture, and the lecture was just in the lecturer's room, maybe 3 or 4 of you there. So it was like one-to-one tuition. So I was able to take advantage of that. So in parallel with my official undergraduate studies in Arabic and Persian, I was able to have this Sanskrit teaching as well, which was I'm grateful for up to this day. So this wonderful system we owe to places like Al-Azhar and Bologna. I'm glad to see that we have representatives of both nations here with us now. So,
someone from Nalanda as well. Is there anybody from Nalanda University?
Milan. How old is the University of Milan? Do you know?
No, sorry, Nalanda.
Oh, sorry. I didn't get Nalanda.
Where Shantideva.
Shantideva, of course. You see, yeah, you're absolutely right. Nalanda, the Buddhist university in India, was a really flourishing center of learning, and Shantideva was at the University of Nalanda. But alas, it did not survive the Muslim invasion, very sadly. Oops. So we don't have anybody with us at the moment from the land of Nalanda.
James, was it the Muslims or the Moguls?
I think it was the first of the Mughals, of course, were Muslims. Who actually did? I'm going to have to research this point.
I suppose the Turkish.
It may have been. So which particular invasion was it? I think this one happened before the Mongol invasion. This is a point I'll research and get back to you on. But thank you for that, Paul. I will need to brush up my historical knowledge on this a bit.
Yeah, only because they came from the east, also from Persia, and as Marco was saying, from Turkey, etc. So we can all look it up anyway. Thank you.
Yeah, well, in fact, it was the Mongols and the Turks. They all came ultimately from Central Asia, and then, of course, not straight south into India. They went round and came down via what is now Iran into India, because they didn't come through Tibet and over the mountains. It was through and round. So a kind of an anti-clockwise motion from Central Asia around Iran and then in India. So anyway, back to our little verse from the Hitopadesha. And I'll try and do this orally. So Udyama. We know our root yam, meaning to exert an effort, or can mean to lift as well. We have it in the phrase vyayama. In Pali, the word for right effort in Pali is samma vayama. In Sanskrit is samyag vyayama, translated as right effort. So the yama here as the verbal noun, the root yam makes a verbal noun both yama and yama. You find both. So the viyama is stretching out. So in Sanskrit, viyama, I'm stretching out my arms. Vi apart, yama stretching. Making an effort in a particular direction, lifting or stretching, pulling. So vyama means stretching out, and it's also used as a measure of distance. So one vyama is the length from the length between the fingertips. We all know that drawing of the Leonardo da Vinci drawing of the man with his legs apart and his arms outstretched. This balance, that's also the vyama. Ayama is pulling towards yourself. Ayama, pulling towards yourself. If you put the vi and the a together, vi a yama, that suggests a kind of a tug of war. You're pulling against a force that is pulling against you. You've got the viyama, viyama. And that is the word that is used in the Noble Eightfold Path for effort. In Pali, it just becomes vayama, but in Sanskrit, vyayama. So our word effort, exfortiare would be in ancient Latin, putting out strength, the effort, putting out strength. But the Sanskrit and Pali words suggest it's a kind of a mutual, it's an interaction, kind of a struggle, a dynamic struggle between yourself and the world, almost like the struggle between the forces of good and the forces of evil. So you are in this, this sama, this kind of harmonious but rightful struggle with the world. That's the idea that lies behind right effort. So from that same root, yam, we have udyama, ut meaning here up. Now, in this particular form, it's not udyama, but udyama. Sometimes you find yama, sometimes yama. You get both. Udyama means lifting. That's its basic meaning. Udyama, uplifting. But it also means like making an effort, exerting yourself, making, being determined to do something. And we still have that idiom in English. If you're doing some real work, we talk about doing some heavy lifting. Doesn't necessarily mean you're actually physically lifting a weight. But if you talk about somebody in the office, he's doing all the heavy lifting, means he's doing the real work. So udyamena, so by instrumental, udyamena hi. It is by effort, it is by udyama. Siddhyanti karyani. A karya is something which is to be done. It's from the root kri, to do, from which we have the Latin creare, it was the English creation. Very common word, karoti, krita, kata in Pali, krita in Sanskrit. And so the future passive participle, sometimes called the gerundive, is so a karya means it's something that needs to be done, a task, a chore, something that needs to be accomplished. It's the equivalent of the Latin agendum, something that is to be done. So kari, and it's a neuter, and used as a noun, a neuter. So karyani, things to be done. Siddhyanti. Now, siddhyanti, karyani. So the karyani, siddhyanti, the things, the tasks, siddhyanti, get done, are achieved, udyamenahi, by effort. Na manuratai. This verse begins udyamene hi. Now the force of the hi here is not just tasks are accomplished by effort. It's the emphasis. It is by effort that the tasks are accomplished. But the force of hi there is a little bit like Eva. It emphasizes that it's by this udyama that things get done, not by, well, it goes on to say namanuratai, not by fancies of the mind. So udyamenahi, it is by effort that siddhyanti karyani, that the karyani are accomplished. Na manuratai, not by manurata. So what is a manurata? Well, we have the word manas, meaning the mind, the one that regularly appears in Pali as manu, but in Sanskrit manas, and by sandhi before ra would become also manurata, by mind ratas. Rata, there is, I think, possibly even a deliberate ambivalence in this word. Rata, spelt in transliteration R-A-T-H-A, means two completely distinct things. One of the meanings is it's a derivative of the verb, the root, I should say, ri, meaning to go. That's the one we write with a dot under it. So the rata means that which goes, that which, and it means a wheel, rata. And
like rotation in English.
I'm sorry?
Rota, like rotation in English.
It's the same word. Yes, Marco, it is. It
And
comes,
rota in wheel.
yes,
in Italian.
exactly. So it becomes rota in Latin and ruota. You spelled it ruota, isn't it, in Italian? Ruota, I-U-O-T-A. Ruota in Italian. It's la roue in French, rueda in Spanish. It's that same word. And it's, as Marco correctly observed, then it's the same word that we have in rotate, rotary, just going round like a wheel. So there we are. It's from the Latin. So in fact, we even use the Latin word rota. We have a rota in the sense of, people take turns at doing a particular task. When you're on retreat, you have your washing up rota. That's just from the Latin word meaning a wheel. So there we are. It's rata in Sanskrit. The word rata in Sanskrit then started off meaning a wheel, but then by extension came to mean a chariot. So, and in particular, a war chariot. And particularly the war chariot, there was a two-wheel chariot drawn by horses. So you had your rata there. So manorata can then be construed to mean a chariot of the mind. And we all know how it happens. You get some fancy, some desire, some train of thought. Off it rushes like a chariot with the horses out of control. That's one interpretation of manorata. The other interpretation is that it's from the root ram, just written as an R-A-M, which basically means to... It has a dual meaning of either enjoying yourself or being at rest, oddly enough. So we have the word rati, which means that tends to have a sexual connotation. Rata, normally not. Rata can also mean just a fancy, a desire, something that you enjoy. So the manorata can either mean chariots, a chariot of the mind, or a fancy, an enjoyment of the mind, like a mental fancy. So here, udyamenahi, it is by udyama, by effort, that karyani siddhyanti, that tasks are achieved. Na manoratai, not by these manoratas, that's not by these either chariots of the mind or mental fantasies. So that's the general statement. You often find this in Sanskrit poetry. You have a generalized statement, and then in the second line, you get a specific example to support that statement, and the specific example in the second line is nahi suptasya singhasya pravishanti mukhe mriga. For it is not the case, nahi, that the he there, nahi mriga, it means it's often translated as deer, but it generally means the animals of the forest, wild animals, but
game. Those animals who can be hunted for the meat. Any wild animal.
That exactly so. So Marco is exactly right there. So it's not just all wild animals; it's the non-predatory animals. It tends, as Marco says, it's the animals that can be hunted either by man or by other animals. So in ancient India, par excellence, the preferred meal of the lion would be a deer or something like that. So it often means deer, but generally speaking, animals that are eaten by generally the herbivore animals and birds that are eaten by predatory animals. So these mriga na pravishanti, do not enter, mukhe, into the mouth, that's the locative there, mukha, mouth, into the mouth, suptasya singhasya, of the sleeping lion. So I'll just write it up on my iPad now. And if you feel like, learning a verse or two of Sanskrit, this is a very, very good one to start. So
when you finish, James, can you talk a bit about Karyani Siddhyanti?
okay, actually, yes. So let me just give you my. I'll do that right now, then, Paula. So we've got the root kri.
Can we see the iPad, please, James?
Sorry, I'd forgotten to share the screen again. Share screen, share. Okay, is it with you now, iPad? Good. So kri. This particular one, it makes its gerundive with karya. In fact, it also makes, it does it in more than one way. It also makes karaniya and kartavya. So karya, karaniya, kartavya, they all have the same meaning. It's the same as it's called the future passive participle. The future passive participle is the same as you have in Latin, these forms of the verb that ends in andus or endus or iendus. So amare, to love, amandus, which then we have as a girl's name, Amanda. So from amare, to love, Amanda means the girl is worthy of love, lovable. We have the verb, the verb agere, from which we have in modern English to act, an agent, and words like that. Agere, so an agendus, nominative form, and neuter singular is agendum, so it would be a carium in Latin. It's a different root, but agendum in Latin would mean a thing to be done. It's a neuter.
Like agenda in English. Like
Sorry?
agenda.
It's exactly exactly that same word. So we have agendum is the singular, agenda in Latin, which in Italian, of course, you'd say the g sound has become a j, which it does now in Italian and English and other languages before an e and an I. So we have agenda in modern English. So agenda just is the same as the Latin word agenda, meaning things that have to be done. So it's the same meaning as the karya. So karyam, your karyani, things to be done, your agenda, literally things to be done. And siddh, we've got the root siddh and sad. They are essentially the same root, but siddh is like the attenuated or softened form, the shorter form of sad. Treat them as being essentially the same root. And the idea of behind siddh and sad is getting somewhere, achieving something. Also, it's used in the idea of hitting the mark, like the arrow, and the arrow hits the mark. Let me just call it
The
up.
CDs or the whatever, or is it also the seed, the CDs?
It is exactly that.
The special forces or something.
It is exactly that same word, Paola. You are right. So a siddhi is an accomplishment, and it's used in the sense of a spiritual accomplishment. Not to be confused with riddhi, which has a kind of overlapping meaning. Riddhi, that in Pali turns up as iddhi, which often means spiritual powers. That's iddhi. Riddhi, Pali iddhi, has more the meaning of an acquisition, something, a power that you have acquired. Siddhi has more the meaning of something that you have accomplished, something you have achieved. But there is an overlap in meaning. And so a siddhi is the power, and a siddha is a person who has that power. From the same root, you have the word sadhu. Now, sadhu, as a noun, is often translated as the holy man. You have the idea, the holy man who wanders in his robes made of rags and lives as a mendicant. He is a sadhu. But it's from that same root. What is the sadhu doing? He is taking the direct, fast route to spiritual accomplishment. He's taking the difficult route. He is the sadhu, the person who's going straight for it. That's my interpretation of what lies behind this route, or this word rather, the sadhu. Also, you will hear said in Buddhist and Hindu circles, often at the end of a chant or a meeting, people say sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. That is used in the adverbial or indeclinable form, often very roughly something, hear, hear, well said. But it has the ultimate idea of what has been said has hit the mark, like an arrow hitting the target. The words have accomplished their task. Let me just call up Moni Williams on the subject.
So sorry to be a little bit slow here, but in Karyani Siddhyanti, which part means what? So
okay,
I understand what both. I'm just trying to kind of go back to the
okay, right.
translation.
So karya from the root kri to do. Karya is an agendum, is a thing requiring to be done. Plural karyani, the things that need to be done, your task, your agenda.
Okay.
That's the Kakaryan. Siddhyanti means they are accomplished, they are achieved. So let me just call up this Moni Williams here. In fact, there are three roots, Siddh. So this is what I'm looking at. Siddh, like Siddh. Actually, let me just turn off the highlight off. Okay, here we are. This is the one. So yeah, Moni Williams says it is Siddh, weak form of Sad. So Siddh and Sad, treat them as effectively the same root. There are several roots like that in Sanskrit Vedic. For example, I and Ya are effectively the same. Is Ya meaning to go is a stronger form of I meaning to go. So to be accomplished or fulfilled, then to hit a mark, as in archery, or when you're throwing a dart, a spear, shooting an arrow, is hitting the mark, attaining one's aim or object. The idea behind that route is you've got an objective and you get there, you achieve it. And then looking down to sadhu, Moni Williams gives us straight or right. and then successful, powerful, excellent, good, virtuous, all these various meanings, and the guru, virtuous man, holy man, and we get down to the indeclinable down here. Here we are. It's good, well done, bravo. Okay, that's how Moni Williams has put it. But as an exclamation of when somebody has done something well or said something well. But the idea behind it is you've achieved it, you've been successful, you've hit the target. And let me just get back to the verb form of it. There are 3 roots. Here we are. So it's a class 4. So siddhyati is accomplished, plural siddhyanti. Do you all, by the way, have access? I hope you do to Moni Williams online. And it's a free online resource. Is there anybody who does not have access to Moni Williams online?
I don't. I think there's a link in your information document, isn't there?
The study resources guide.
Study resources, yeah.
There is, yes.
Yeah.
And also, yes, that's right. Also in the study resources guide, I've done a note on how to use it, how to look things up. So hopefully that should be a complete explanation. And I would urge you, it is worth spending a little bit of time and trouble on getting to know that website, or the Moni Williams online searchable dictionary. It really is worth doing. It's fairly simple to use. I'm a bit of a technical dunce, and it didn't take me too long to work it out. And you can use different inputs. You see, for your search input, Kyoto Harvard, all these various things. You can input Roman Devanagari or Kyoto Harvard. Kyoto Harvard is just one of the ways of transliteration. In our transliteration that we use these diacritics. We mark the long R with a macron over it, and we put dots under various things. The dot under the N there, for example, to indicate it's a retroflex. But you can input things like that in Moni Williams. However, the Kyoto Harvard is very useful in that without any diacritics, you can type it straight in from your keyboard. And there's a note also on that in my study resources guide. It looks very inelegant. And for example, if you wanted to write jnana, you'd write it as it looks very inelegant because a capital J represents the ñ sound. So jña would be little j, big J. The long I you'd write as a capital R. So it looks terribly inelegant, and I would never want to use this form of transliteration for the texts that we study them, but it's a very convenient shortcut for looking up in Moni Williams. It's called the Kyoto Harvard system. So search, you see jnana, and there it comes. That's the same jnana, you see that I put it. That's now back to our standard form of transliteration. So you can input it with our diacritics, which is the Roman. You can even put in input with Devanagari script if you want. Kyoto Harvard is the easiest. Anyway, I digress because all of this is explained in the relevant section of this study resources guide. So back to Siddh. So here we see it's a class 4 verb. That means it puts a y in. So not sedhati, but siddhyati. Siddhyati is accomplished. So udyamenahi, it is by udyama, it's by the heavy lifting that the karyani, things to be done, siddhyanti, are accomplished, na manurathai, not by these either mind fancies or mind chariots. Nahi, for not, mukhe, into the mouth, suptasya singhasya, of the sleeping lion, mriga, the deer or the wild animals, pravishanti, and enter in. This word singha, by the way, meaning a lion, it's the same word that we see in the surnames of many Punjabi Sikhs. A lot of people's surname is a Singh. That's that same. And also with the suffix, the word pura, meaning a city. We have Lion City, which is Singhapura in Sanskrit, which we have as Singapore in English. So, Singapura, I think they pronounced it in Malay. But anyway, it's from the Sanskrit, Singhapura, the Lion City, the city of the lions. So you all have the text of this verse on the email that I sent you after the last class. Are you going to recite it for us, Chris?
I'll give it a go, James.
Give it a go.
Switch screens, please, James, because we're looking at Monia Williams.
Oh, yes, okay. I don't think I've even written it out. Do you, hang on, have I got it? Hang on, I will be able to pull it up on the screen for those who, it is on the last email, but in case you don't have, sorry, I just opened a wrong document there. Bear with me while I open it. The opens and browse. Sanskrit. Here we are. So this is the sheet in which I got several little odds and ends. So this is the one here, written in the Roman script. So, Chris, are you ready to recite it for us?
Udyamena. Yeah. Just checking my. I didn't think I had my audio in front of me.
Okay.
Udyamena hi karyani siddhyanti na mano ratayaha.
Rataihi.
Ratayi.
Now, interesting, you transpose those two words, siddhyanti karyani. Because in the way it was originally written, you had the verb first and the noun second. So if you,
I wrote it down from your email.
Did I write it the other way around in my email?
You must have done, James, because I whilst you were explaining, I simply copied the email.
Okay. In that case, I made an error in the email. I transposed those two words. I accidentally transposed those two words. It doesn't affect the meaning in any way, but apologies for that. The way it originally appears in the Hitopadesh itself is as appears on screen now. My error, but linguistically it doesn't in fact alter it. And the second line now, my iconic line, the first bit of Sanskrit I ever understood unaided, 60 years ago.
Nahi subtasya pravishanti mukhe magraha.
You missed a, hang on, I couldn't have got it that wrong in my email. I'm just checking what I wrote to you in my email.
Oh, maybe yeah. I'm reading from my own notes, James.
Okay. Hopefully you got it wrong. This would have been a serious failing on my part if I.
Maybe I scribbled it down incorrectly, but yeah, not to worry. I'll take it from the screen.
Okay, do yes.
Nahi subtasya simhasya pravishanti mukhe magraha.
Mrigaha.
Mrigaha. Yeah, I think I must have, as I wrote it down in haste, I must simply have just transcribed it indirectly from.
Okay, this is okay. I did get it right in the Nahi Suptasya Singhasya Pravishanti Mukhe Mriga.
Yeah.
But in what I wrote to you then, I accidentally transposed these two words. I wrote Karyani Siddhyanti. It should be the other way around, Siddhyanti Karyani.
All right.
With the verb first and the noun second. It doesn't, in fact, alter the meaning in any way, but follow what you've got on screen now as your as the correct text. In fact, I in my email following this, which will probably come tomorrow now because I've got to shoot off immediately after this. I'll send you the correct text as it appears in the Hitu Padesha.
Okay.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Chris. How about yourself, Madeleine? Would you like to recite for us?
Yes. Ujjame nahi siddhyanti karyani na manorataihi nahi suptasya simhasya pravishanti mukhe mrgaha.
Okay, very good. Now you notice how Madeleine very correctly did the shadow vowels at the end, mrigehi, and so manorataihi and mrigaha. Notice that with that shadow vowel, you get the mrigaha with a short a sounded at the end, sounded but never written for the visarga. If you've got the compound vowel a, then the shadow vowel, as Madeleine correctly pronounced it, is the I, manorataihi. Manorataihi. Again, it's pronounced but not written. Barry, round to you.
Yep. Udyamena hi siddhyanti karyani na manaraitahi.
Manoratai.
Manorataihi.
Yes.
Nahi subtasya singhasya pravishanti mukhe mrigaha.
Okay, right. And remember this, the shadow vowel at the end, you can hear it, but it's very, very light. It's just like a shadow vowel. But yeah, okay, thanks. Kath, round to you.
Udyamena hi siddhyanti karyani na manorataihi nahi suptasya singhasya pravishanti mukhe mrgaha.
Wonderful, thank you. And finally, Marco, would you like to give us a recitation of it, please?
Udyamena hi siddhyanti karyani na manorataihi nahi suptasya simhasya pravishanti mukhe mrgaha.
Wonderful, wonderful. Little did I imagine 60 years ago that 60 years later I would be I would be teaching it and going through this very same iconic verse with with students. Okay, wonderful. So I have to leave now. So we have held the class today rather than next week, which it would have been because I'll be away on retreat next week. So then we've got our next time after that on whichever date it was. I forget which now. So I will thank you all for. Hang on, I'll thank you all for joining me. I'll send you
Have a
the
nice
usual
retreat,
email.
James.
Thank you.
Okay, so
Have a
what
great
you,
retreat.
okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you
Nice
all. Thank
retreat.
you. Thank you.
Thank
Bye
you.
then.
Bye now.
Goodbye. Goodbye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.